Hi, this is Catherine, and welcome back to Taking Tea with Catherine. I'm drinking yet another one of my kind of boring herbal teas because I tend to film these in the evening. It's a lemon mint, so I'm not gonna go on about that. But I chose this kind of funny mug that someone gave me because I guess they thought, why not? As you do. Because, okay, it's really not the time of year to think about bunnies and rabbits and stuff, but I'm finding that my books at home are multiplying like rabbits. I had decided this month that I was not going to buy any books. I was not even going to darken the bookshop with my shadow, or whatever the term is. Let's make up our own terms. But yeah, and I was totally on board with that. I thought, I'm going to be very busy reading and I'm going to have other things that I'm going to do this month, and I don't need to buy books. I have enough in my life and I don't even need to go to a bookshop. But I went to a bookshop pretty early on, and within a day or so after doing that, I also went to another bookshop and bought books. And I bought books, and then I bought more books, and I bought some books online, and that's really sad. And maybe my deal is I think that I have to just stop making these bans because it brings on the rebel in me or something. I don't know. I'm not really that much of a rebel, to be honest, but so hopefully November won't be as crazy like that. I will be going away for a week to my sister's in Texas, and my sister in Texas, and just one of them. And we end up going to bookshops pretty often. But I find usually I don't buy a lot of books when I'm there. I may buy one or two, so let's hope that I stick to that resolve. Yay! In the meantime, I have some books for you to show you, and most of them are somewhat Victorian or could have been read in Victober. Some are not, but I'll show you them anyway. But I'll start with the ones that are more Victorianish, Victoberish, etc. So this one is a pretty obvious one. It's funny when you didn't really look into someone's complete works and you know about some of their best known works, and then suddenly you see a book and you say, "Oh, okay, I've not heard of this one, so I'll get it." And then you suddenly see it all over the place. You see it on YouTube, or you see it on Bookstagram, whatever. That's just the way it goes. So I've heard of Wilkie Collins, I've heard of The Moonstone, I've heard of The Woman in White, and maybe one or two others. I'm not sure. But I hadn't heard of No Name, and I saw this, I'm pretty sure I saw this in the Housing Works bookshop in Soho in Manhattan, which is kind of like a non-profit bookshop, but it's pretty big. It's all donated used books. I think everybody working there is voluntary. I don't know. There's a little cafe in there, so you could do tea if you want, but it was kind of crowded. Long story short, I saw this and thought, oh, maybe next year. But of course, I haven't even read Moonstone yet, so I feel bad. But you know what? This is a great picture. So we don't buy things for the pictures, right? But maybe eventually. Oh, my cat seems to like it. I think it was making a kind of a glint and he got excited. Maybe he just likes books, Takes after me. Okay. So some of these are not quite in order of when I bought them, but and that's okay. I'm not going to go into every provenance of everything that I bought today. Right, Freddie? Right, Freddie? Do you want to know where I got the books? You want to know where I got the books? Okay. Yeah? Okay. That intimate moment has been brought to you by Crazy Cat People. All right. I've been trying to complete my Trollop collection. Pretty much. I want to get the whole entire Palliser series and the entire Barsetshire series, and I've got most of them. I picked them up from time to time, and I realized eventually that I didn't have the entire set. So when I saw in I don't remember the name of this bookshop, also downtown in Manhattan. Oh, it's such a shame because it's a nice bookshop, but it's on 1 Bleecker Street in Manhattan. Wow, I forgot the name. It's got like one word. Is it Codex, maybe? No, I think I'm making that up. Either way, if I figure it out, I'll put it in the link somewhere in the description box, etc. They seem to have a lot of used books as well for reasonable prices, and all pretty much under 10, or even under 5, a lot of them, and they had a good chunk of Trollopes. So I got both of Phineas's, so that's good, because I'm up to this one in the Palliser series, and this one comes a little bit later. So that's good, and I kind of like these. They're world classics. I kind of like the pictures in front. This one is Catherine with a migraine, by the way, in case you were wondering what I look like with a migraine. I grow a beard when I have a migraine. So that was definitely great, and I also got this other. I have another book of this penguin Trollop, but this is another one called The Golden Lion of Grandpere. Grandpere, like, is that like grandfather? I don't know. I don't know that much about it. And I'm not going to read this because it's maybe when I make this a TBR, I will read this. This would probably be much better. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm reading. This will probably be a better choice someday for Victober, because then I could read a Trollop and also have time to read other things. But I really am enjoying all of Trollop stuff. I will be finished soon with the Frances Fanny Trollop, the mom. So I'll have something to say about that. But until then, I don't want to ramble about things. So let me see. This I've read. So when I get a chance to reread it, I shall. I'll probably read A Tenant of Wildfell Hall, or at least complete it, because I have started it first. But I like this copy, and I thought I'd like to reread this book. So I thought, Agnes Grey, I got it online. It's lovely. It's green, which I love, and totally clashes with my top today. So that's that. Now let me see. Oh, okay, so I was going to Central Park the other day, and I was heading. You guys don't need to know everything about my route, Central Park, but I was going to cross from east to west, which is a bit of a walk, but on a nice day, it's not bad. It was a little cold the other day, but still not too cold for me. And I happened to pass the kiosk outside Central Park that belongs to the Strand bookshop, and I said, oh, well, have a look. I'm not going to find anything. And of course I found stuff, because I'm not supposed to. And I found 2 Victorian books. So this one, I don't think I've heard of either. Yet another mystery in my life. I think at least No Name, or whatever it's called, at least sounded vaguely like I should have known what it was. But this one, and I've read George Eliot. Y'all know I've read George Eliot books. But Mr. Gilfil's Love Story. Have not heard of this one. Have now. Will read it someday. Would also be a really good pick if I want to read in volume. But it's not all about that, is it? But anyway, it looks good. It really looks good. I don't know what it's about. Do you want me to read what it's about? Caterina Sarti is the orphan daughter of an Italian music master, who has been brought up by the aristocratic Chevreul family, in love with the Chevreul heir, Anthony Wybrow. It's like highbrow. Her hopes of marriage are frustrated by the discovery that not only has Anthony merely been playing with her affections, but his family will never accept her as their equal. Mr. Gilfil, the faithful vicar, rescues Caterina from her despair, but not before she has been irrevocably damaged by her unkind treatment. Oh no. So, I don't know. It sounds depressing, but that's okay because it's short. I'm not going to be dragged into long depressions. I've probably just told the whole story, because that's what they do. All right. So this one, I noticed watching the vlog from Katie for Books and Things that she's reading this book. It's funny, again, like, you almost never heard of this. I'm sure I have heard of this book, because I've done a lot of reading on the Pre-Raphaelites, and he was one of the, not the original, but almost original Pre-Raphaelites, and his patterns and fabrics and whatnots and his designs have been well known. But his writing not as much, although he did write a lot about Icelandic whatnot, I think. William Morris, News from Nowhere. So, yeah, I know it's supposed to be about some, like, future time or whatever, so it should be interesting. I don't know. I'm not ready for it yet, but I'm kind of glad I have it, because I really like the cover. But no, I really am interested in reading this. And I like the name, News from Nowhere, because even though I don't think it'll be open when I'm in Texas, the writer Jenny Lawson is opening up a bookshop. Did I mention this yet? I don't know. I can repeat things. It's okay. In Texas, I think in Alamo Heights, in San Antonio, which is where my sister lives, in case you were looking to stalk her. Sorry, Bonnie. I like her as a writer. I met her in Housing Works, which is a, full circle moment there. And the bookshop's called Nowhere Books. And she just put some news from the bookshop. So I thought that's great. News from Nowhere. So it's like, it ties in my own head, and you guys now know about it. I don't know. I'm just advertising for people. That's what I do. So if you're in the Texas area and this bookshop happens to open, go there, because, I mean, always support your local bookshops. Okay, I'm really rambling, and I'm going to make this a long video again, because that's what I do. This is how we roll. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little more in the future about the Virago Modern Classics. I have quite a gang of them, but I think I'm going to have more. Well, I have more now, and I have about 12 or 13 of them now, and I'm thinking maybe next year I might do a challenge thing of my own that no one else has to participate in if they don't want to, where I'll read one a month. You know, like I read at least one mystery a month, maybe I'll read one classic a month, and then also one Virago Modern. You know, I have like my little goals, and it would just be neat because I could read one every month. And I could always Victober it next year, because some of these are actually written in Victorian times and are Victorian. So I never had a copy of this book, and I've never read it. I've heard of it so many times. It sounds beautiful. This also clashes today, but you know what? I love green. Elizabeth and Her German Garden by Elizabeth von Arnim. So, am I pronouncing that right? Probably not. But it's got a pretty little kind of impressionist-looking painting here. Is it impressionist? Let me see. It's by Family in Orchard by, buckle up, Theo von Rischelberg. Yeah, it's not happening. Sorry. Okay, so I want to read this, and now I have it. And I think it was like $1. So, yeah. A couple of these I bought in Argosy Bookshop, which is in Midtown East Manhattan. And it's an old bookshop, and it sells old books, some really cool old books, some very expensive ones. But in the front of the shop, outside, first they have some discounted paperbacks, so you're around $6 or whatever, and then along the wall they have $1, $1, and a lot of these are in there, these $1 books, and I'm like, but this is a great book. So yeah, and a lot of other Victorian books were there that I already had and probably paid more for. So if you're ever in that area, man, they should pay me for advertising, but they won't. Wah wah. So this is a book about me, by the way. This is called The Clever Woman of the Family. Actually, I think my sisters are quite clever. A lot of women in my family are quite clever. I'm just good at remembering dates and not as good as I used to be. So by Charlotte Young, which I've heard of somehow. I think I might have another book of hers, and I could be totally wrong about that. Maybe I've just heard the name. But it was written, well, she was, I don't know the exact time this was written, but I'll find out when I read it. It was $1, okay? So, or was this $1? Let me make sure. Yeah, I think it was. There's just too many to read the blurbs, but I like the way it looks, and so I hope it's good. It's got a lot. It says upholding the traditions of Victorian English. It's about someone named Rachel Curtis, daughter of the squire of the homestead, rejecting the idea of marriage. See, it is about me. Okay, so now this one is not written in Victorian times. It was written in 1914, so a little after. But it's also Virago, and it's, I think, the way it's described, because it writes about three sisters, it's called The Three Sisters, living in a Yorkshire village, in a vicarage, and their father. Does that sound familiar to you, my Victorian book lovers? I think it does. It sounds like the Brontes, right? I think this has to be loosely based on the life of the Brontes, and I will find out when I read it, which will probably be next year. But The Three Sisters also autobiographical. But if I didn't agree that it might not be about the Brontes, I mean, this picture, this is them. This be the Brontes. So, and I never remember which one's which. Do I have to know? No. They all kind of look a little creepy in this picture. But that's okay, because, I mean, it was, who was it who drew this? Was it their brother? I'm not sure. Branwell? Maybe. It just says P.B. Bronte. I don't know. Peanut Butter Bronte? Was it one of the many siblings that died very young? Yes, and it was in the National Portrait Gallery, which I actually saw at one point in the National Portrait Gallery. Another place I always recommend. I recommend a lot of things. I'm a recommender. And if I don't like something, I just won't recommend it. Okay, so we're done with actually written in Victorian times or thereabouts. I have 3 more books that I will talk about very shortly, hopefully. This one isn't written in the Victorian times, but it's takes place during the Victorian times, and I've had my eye on this for a while, and I know this is going to be at some point featured in one of my tea and mystery things. I just love, I really have to stop buying things because I like the cover, but I'm sure a lot of people do this, and I know my sister saw this book too. So it's the Bertie, Prince of Wales mysteries, the complete one. So it's got, let me see, 3 stories: Bertie and the Tin Man, Bertie and the 7 Bodies, and Bertie and the Crime of Passion. Now, you probably realize that if you know anything about Queen Victoria and her family and the royal family, etc., and if you don't, well, I'm about to tell you. Bertie was the name given to the first son of Victoria and Albert, therefore the heir to the throne. When he was the king, he was Edward the 7th, yes, because the 8th is the one who abdicated. But those days you would have a name when you reigned as king or queen. Victoria kept her own name, pretty much. Well, she had another name, Alexandrina or something, but Elizabeth kept hers. But anyway, I'm rambling. But Bertie was named after, I guess, his father, Albert, right? So, and Bertie's just, one of those names. It's just a great name. I want to name a cat Bertie. It's a cute name. He's one of those people that I really think I would like to read more about. I mean, you always hear about the Edwardian times, was basically based on the time that he was king. I really want to know what he was like as a person. They always talk about how he was all with all these women and he was out all the time getting himself into trouble, and that when his father, Albert, went to see him and help him out with some trouble he got into, Albert got sick and then died, and then Victoria blamed her son. So he keeps getting put in a bad light. On the show Victoria, he's kind of portrayed as being dyslexic, so, I mean, maybe he had some learning issues, and if they would have been more understanding, he might have had a better go at it. I don't know. I know nothing about it, but I think this Peter Lovesey, who wrote this book, must have realized that this man was out and about all the time. Maybe he was out and about solving mysteries. So that would be cool. So I just like that premise. I don't know. Right? So there it is. Right? Yay. Okay. And that was definitely, if he's the Prince of Wales and not the king yet, that was definitely Victorian times. Like, you can't. Right? Right. Okay, so 2 more books. This is, I've mentioned this writer before. I'm almost done with one of his latest books, but I saw this come out and I just love his books. The books that I've read, most of them have to do with his cats. This one, there were a couple that he wrote that were mostly not about his cats, just about his life and about his walks with nature, etc., which are wonderful too. But this one returns a little bit to his cat stories. Even though I know the story already, so this is Ring the Hill by Tom Cox. I know that this is going to talk about the deaths of 2 of his beloved cats that I was just in love with when I was reading about them when they're still alive. And of course they died within a month or so of each other. So that was the bear, who was adorable, and Shipley, who was the sweary cat, who he always had captioned in some kind of real foul-mouthed quote. And it was great, but, reading about animals dying is always sad, but because I know it's coming, I think I might be able to handle it a little better. And I just love the way he writes, and I like the way he writes about his family and about his cats, and there's 2 more cats. One of them is really up there in years, but, So that is Tom Cox. I hope to read that soon, maybe Nonfiction November. We shall see. All right. Last but not least, because this is a honking big book, and I saw it on, it was one of the BookTube channels. Okay, but I saw it being featured, and I said, oh, I love this, and I have all the poems for every day and every night of the year, all those kind of things, and this, I think, is part of that series. It has to be, right? Shakespeare for every day of the year. I really do like Shakespeare. I don't talk about it enough here because I really haven't had occasion to, because I kind of skipped over ShakeTube this year in September because I had too much going on. But I think I might read another Shakespeare-related thing in April because that is really Shakespeare month and poetry month. So maybe I'll get into it then. But I just love, first of all, this design is beautiful. But I love being able to look up a day. Of course, when I looked at my birthday, it has to be Romeo and Juliet because people keep trying to throw Romeo and Juliet on me, and it's not the worst thing in the world, But I don't care for, it's not, I don't hate Romeo and Juliet. It's just, it's not my favorite. It's just so popular, you know? But it's okay. Oh, but okay. I'm not looking at dates right now because I'm going to get all wound up. So that's all the books. Well, maybe I bought other books. I don't know. But these are all the books that are kind of in theme. And then there's just a couple that I stuck on the end. So I've been a bad girl. And I bought a lot of books. But I could have been buying other things that were even worse. I could have been buying, nuclear weapons. So I'm a good girl. And I just have to just keep reading them so that I don't feel so bad. Lots of motivation, lots of tea, or at least herbal tea. This has been Catherine from Taking Tea with Catherine. Let me know if you've read any of these books down below, what you think, etc. And have a lovely October, autumn, the rest. Good night.